The reason you can't lose weight might just be because you stopped drinking wine. Now, that might sound a bit crazy because it obviously goes against what most personal trainers and fitness professionals will tell you. But as someone who has spent a lot of time learning about the science of behavior change, has helped over 600 people achieve sustainable fat loss, and, loves a glass of wine, I can say with a strong degree of confidence that completely cutting out alcohol, if it's something that you do enjoy, is a surefire way to always struggle with weight loss. So in this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about alcohol and fat loss, how you can keep it in your diet, and why this may actually lead to the best and most sustainable results you've ever experienced, so that you can still go to the pub on a regular basis, enjoy a tipple or two, with the confidence that you're not going to set yourself back. Now, of course, you can't just go mental on the booze and expect great results. There absolutely does need to be some form of discipline and structure around it, but that's exactly what I'm going to talk you through in detail, so you can have the best of both worlds. And by the way, I share YouTube videos on topics like this every single week. I'm someone who used to really struggle with finding a balance in my life that allowed me to achieve my physique goals while still enjoying a fun social life. Felt like it had to be one or the other. But over the years, I've realized that you can absolutely do both. You just need to have the right systems, knowledge, and mindset in place. So that's what I'll be sharing each week. Tips on how to drop fat and achieve that lean, toned physique, but without having to live in restriction mode. So please do subscribe if that sounds like something you'd benefit from. Okay, into the episode, and I want to start with a couple of quick caveats. Firstly, if you do have a troubled relationship with alcohol, this video is not for you. This is specifically aimed at people who enjoy a drink socially and feel completely in control of their alcohol consumption, but want to learn how to include it in a way that still aligns with their health and fat loss goals. And the second thing is, it would be irresponsible of me as someone who works in the fitness and health industry to not mention that alcohol is not good. It's not good for our bodies, right? It is unfortunately a toxin, a poison at any dose. As much as I would love to say that the antioxidant benefits that you get from drinking red wine is a legit reason to drink, no. Unfortunately, any small benefits you may gain from drinking alcohol are hugely outweighed by the risks, including an increased risk of long-term health issues such as liver disease and certain kinds of cancer. So please be aware that if you do choose to drink alcohol, you are accepting those risks, which do exist at any dose. Now you might be thinking, well, Georgia, if there are no health benefits and in fact it's actually harmful even in small doses, why are you promoting the consumption of it? That is a very valid question, because it would be so easy for me as a fat loss coach to just tell my clients to cut out alcohol. For a lot of people, that would literally save hundreds, maybe even thousands of calories across the week and therefore accelerate the fat loss process. And I'm not denying that for some people, that approach will absolutely work. But for a lot of people, that approach will backfire. You see, alcohol has become quite the cultural phenomenon. Rightly or wrongly, we tend to drink it when we celebrate, commiserate, socialize, unwind. And realistically, me asking someone to cut out something that is such a routine part of their week and something they really enjoy, it's going to end up one of two ways. Number one, they tell me to bugger off because that's just not realistic. It's not going to happen. And number two, more likely, they try it, they give it their best shot, but at some point, whether a few days, weeks, or months down the line, they give in. They decide they're just going to have one glass of wine or one pint and that'll be it. But you know as well as I do, the floodgates tend to open. And that one drink turns into many, many more, especially when you have been depriving yourself for so long. Because that's the thing about restriction. It often makes whatever you have decided to restrict way more desirable. Something that you previously would have had in moderation starts to live rent-free in your mind. And that psychological tension eventually leads to an overindulgence. So banning alcohol, for a lot of people, will just make them want it more. And when you want it more, not only are you going to betray your intentions of banning it from your life, but you're actually more likely to consume it in excess. And that's why I have a bit of a rule of thumb when it comes to fat loss. If you can't see yourself removing something from your life forever, then you shouldn't do it in the short term. Otherwise, as soon as you reintroduce it, whether intentionally or not, guess what happens? The weight is very likely going to come piling back on, because you never learned how to sustain the results with it in your diet. And the same goes for bread, cheese, chocolate, sugar, all the usual suspects that people tend to cut out in a bid to lose weight. If you can't see yourself living without it forever, don't bother doing it in the short term. There is a reason that 90% of dieters will regain the weight that they lost within a 5-year period. And it all comes down to the approach that they took to lose that weight in the first place. The people who are getting the best results, the results that actually last, are the ones who are doing it in a way that doesn't involve major restriction or sacrificing the things that they really, really enjoy. And that even includes alcohol. Now, having said all of that, alcohol consumption can also be pretty detrimental to fat loss. So it's incredibly important that you find a balance that allows you to enjoy it in moderation without it holding you back. And in order to do that, you need to understand why alcohol has the potential to set you back so that you can put specific systems in place to stay in control and still see results. Because a lot of people get this wrong. So let me run you through exactly how alcohol can prevent fat loss and the exact measures that I myself and my clients put in place to successfully lose and maintain their weight. And I want to start by dispelling a common myth that I see all the time floating around TikTok that so many people believe, and I think it's just causing a lot of confusion and fear around alcohol and therefore leading to unsustainable behaviors.
Let me explain why alcohol ruins weight loss. First, your body treats alcohol like it's a poison. The second you drink, fat burning shuts down completely.
So while it is true that when alcohol is in your system, your body will prioritize getting rid of it because it views it as a toxin. So fat burning gets deprioritized. It still doesn't defy the law of thermodynamics, which means if you're in a calorie deficit, regardless of alcohol consumption, you will still lose body fat at the same rate. And there have actually been quite a few studies which have tested this, such as this one, which compared drinking white wine to grape juice. Both groups followed a calorie-controlled diet, and as you can see, despite one group drinking alcohol and the other not, the weight loss results were almost identical, meaning calorie intake is what matters for fat loss. So the good news is you can still drink alcohol if it fits into your calories. But the bad news is that alcohol tends to be pretty calorific. And that brings me on to reason number 1, that alcohol can make fat loss harder. It is high in calories. 1 gram of alcohol equals 7 calories. So let's say you're a woman who is on 1,600 calories a day. Friday night comes round, you've had a stressful week, husband texts you asking if you want to meet at the pub for a glass of wine. Obviously you say yes. 2 medium glasses of wine later, and you have consumed well over 300 calories in liquid form. Within potentially an hour, that has taken up 20% of your daily calories just through liquid. 20% of zero nutritional value. And that's before we even factor in the inevitable bag of crisps or 2 that you of course get when you're at the pub on a Friday night. Which brings me on to reason number 2, that alcohol makes fat loss harder. And that is the way in which it not only increases your appetite, but also worsens decision making. That is a deadly combo when you're trying to control your eating habits. And it's not just the snacking at the time of drinking, it might also look like ditching your healthy dinner plans in favor of a takeout, or worse, the 3 a.m. kebab. We've all been there. I mean, realistically, I think it would be midnight latest for me now that I'm in my 30s. But back in day, it would have been 3 a.m. And then there's the next day to contend with. Sorry, but when I'm hungover, I am not sticking to my normal meal structure. That is for sure. My appetite matches that of a famished warthog. And I know yours does too, whether you admit it or not. So far we have the calories racking up in the form of both alcoholic beverages, but also all of the food that the alcohol makes you crave. But there is one other way which alcohol impacts fat loss, which actually a lot of people forget about, and that is how it impacts your activity levels and turns you into the laziest version of yourself. Now be honest, how many times have you gone to the gym the day after having a few drinks? Even as a fitness coach, I would struggle to do a workout if I was hungover. And of course, your step count is likely to be impacted too, because instead of getting up and fulfilling your usual wholesome morning routine, getting your steps in, getting that natural sunlight exposure, you're probably having a lie-in and then spending the rest of the day rotting on the sofa. And so your calorie expenditure for the day is significantly down compared to usual. So those are the real legit ways that alcohol can impact your fat loss progress. In essence, calorie consumption shoots up, activity levels slump. That's it. That's all it is. So basically, if we are to drink, we just need to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I'm going to share with you the 5 things that I do that allow me to enjoy alcohol from time to time, but without letting it negatively impact my physique or my progress. Number one is to set boundaries and be super intentional with your drinking. Don't just drink for the sake of it because it's habit, or because people around you are, or because you're stressed and the first thing you reach for is a glass of wine, because that can really add up without adding any kind of value to your life. So I like to set myself some guidelines to follow around alcohol, such as don't drink on weekdays unless it's a specific event and I really, really want to. Another one I really like to follow is drink to enhance, not to escape. So that's a really great way just to make sure that you're not drinking to get away from a bad feeling, such as drinking because of stress or because of anxiety, which is only going to make that bad feeling worse. So we definitely don't want to get into the routine of using alcohol as an emotional crutch. So instead, it's only drinking when it's actually going to add something positive to the occasion, like you're celebrating, you have a few glasses of wine, great. And I tend to also try to stop drinking after dinner if I can. So if I'm going out for dinner and drinks, after dinner, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, I will move to a non-alcoholic drink, like sparkling water or a Diet Coke, something like that. Because although it feels like the next logical thing to do is get another glass of wine or gin and tonic, whatever it might be, actually, you're going to be just as happy and feel just as involved if you just go for a Diet Coke or something like that. Because you're probably already feeling pretty good, pretty tipsy. You don't want to take it too far, and probably what you're after is just that habit, that feeling of like doing the same thing as everyone else around you, grabbing a drink, sipping it every now and again. So you can absolutely mimic that with a soft drink, and trust me, it probably won't take away from the occasion as much as you maybe think it will. Number two is to be aware of the calories in different drinks so that you can make smarter decisions. 5 pints is about 1,000 calories. 5 gin and tonics with diet soda, it's about 350 calories, So you can have a lot more of those, but a lot less calories. So other low calorie drink options would be a hard seltzer, which usually comes in around 90 calories. You've also got a glass of Prosecco or champagne is typically 80 to 90 calories. And then also a light bottle of beer, which does tend to shave off kind of 30 calories per bottle, so bringing it in around 100 calories for the bottle. And then the ones to perhaps be a little bit more mindful of, because they are more calorific, would be a pint of beer coming in at 200 to 250 calories, a pint of cider, typically a little bit more than a pint of beer. A large glass of wine can often be up to 250 calories. And then sugary cocktails, these can be in excess of 400 calories depending on which one you go for. So it's not like you need to avoid the higher calorie drinks, but it's just being more mindful of your consumption and knowing how they are going to impact your daily calorie intake. One thing I quite like to do is start with the drink I really want. So maybe that's a large glass of wine or a pint of beer. Then I've kind of ticked that off. I'm not like depriving myself of it, and I can move on to the lower calorie alternative. Works quite well. Okay, number 3 is to plan in advance. So something I advise my clients to do if they're going on a night out is to decide in advance what they're going to drink, how many of that drink they're going to consume, pop it into MyFitnessPal or whatever tracking app they use, and then they're being held accountable to follow the plan, and they know that if they stick with it, they're not setting themselves up for failure. It's not something that they need to feel guilty about, or, oh, did I overdo it last night? Like, no, you planned this, you did it intentionally, you decided exactly how many you were going to have, you made sure it fit in with the rest of your calories for the week, maybe making slight adjustments on other days to make sure that the averages across the week are still kind of, aligned with where we want to be. And that intentionality is so important. Speaking of next day, number 4 is to plan the following day, because this is so often where people go wrong. They let that one indulgent night spill into the next day, maybe the day after, and that is what sets them back. Not the one night of a couple of too many drinks, how they behave for the next 24, 48 hours. So if you can plan the next day in advance, know what you're going to eat and have the food ready to go so that the option that aligns with your goals is the easy choice to make, you'll be winning. Because otherwise, if you're feeling lazy, craving something stodgy and you've got nothing in the house, obviously you're gonna go for the not so great option, whether that's a takeaway, a ready meal, ton of snacks, and that can really add up. And nutrition wise, like if you know you're going to be craving a takeaway, then why not have the ingredients in the house to make a fakeaway? Whether that's a burger or a pizza, or maybe it's a curry, then you can still kind of satisfy that craving, but while keeping calories low. And activity wise, I would really recommend planning to meet a friend for a walk on that day that you know you're going to be a bit hungover, because otherwise there is, as I mentioned, a strong chance that you're just going to be, slobbed out on the sofa all day, which isn't ideal. Whereas if you know you're meeting someone, you're gonna make the effort to get up and get out of the house and meet them and go for that walk, right? So that's a great way to hold you accountable. But however you do it, make sure you move, make sure you still get your steps in. Do not use the low energy, the fatigue that comes with the hangover as an excuse to not leave the house. That's only going to make things 10 times worse. Number 5 is to accept that fat loss may indeed be slower during social phases. If you know that you're going to be socializing quite a lot over a certain period of time and calories are going to be up, you can't expect to lose fat at a fast rate. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. I think it's important to remember that you don't need to be in this strict fat loss phase all year round. That would be very depressing. It's actually quite nice to have phases where you push yourself a little bit harder and other times where you kind of take your foot off the gas a bit. And during those times, you've got to manage your expectations. Weight loss is probably going to be slow, but that's fine, because as long as you are still moving forward, even at a super slow rate, is that such a bad thing? In fact, if you're making slow progress, but while still being able to go out, socialize, have fun with your mates, celebrate the fun occasions, that's kind of the dream, right? So do not freak out if it's not happening fast. Don't be tempted to cut food groups or skip meals or restrict calories. Trust the process and stick with it. So to summarize what I've talked about in this video and the key takeaways, alcohol isn't good for your health, but just stopping drinking doesn't really tend to work when it comes to fat loss. For the majority of people, it's just not realistic in this day and age that we live in. But the good news is, if fat loss is your goal, you don't have to give it up. The only reason it will set you back is if the consumption of it drives up your calories and lowers your activity levels to the point where you're no longer in a deficit. And with the simple yet effective strategies that I've taken you through, you can ensure that doesn't happen. So I hope you found this video helpful. And if fat loss is your goal, but you would love to achieve that in a way that doesn't involve restrictive behaviors and giving up your social life and all of the things that you enjoy in life, then I think you would really benefit from watching my Foodie's Fat Loss Masterclass, where I break down the 7-step system for sustainable weight loss. Since I released this webinar about a year ago now, hundreds of people have reached out to tell me just how much it has helped them to break through the barriers that they were facing and finally achieve lasting weight loss of, up to 20 kilos in some people's circumstances without sacrificing the things in life that bring them the most joy. And that is such a great place to be. And if you want to get to that place as well, click on the link below to access the Foodie's Fat Loss Blueprint within seconds. And if you do feel like you need a slightly higher level of support and you would love to work one-to-one with a coach online who can guide you through exactly what you need to do personally to achieve the weight loss that you're after, build a strong, confident physique and feel fitter than ever. And I've also left a link in the description to apply for one-to-one coaching. And by the way, I would never take on anyone who I don't genuinely think I can really help. So feel free to apply. We can have a chat and see if it's for you. Thanks guys, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video.